If you're a kid from the 90s, you may vaguely remember this strange glow-in-the-dark toy that played the role of the villain in the He-Man universe. In this marvelous video, we're going to talk about Scareglow, created by Mattel. He was part of the original Masters of the Universe range of action figures that were released in 1987. He was named as the evil ghost of Skeletor. Skeletor is the main antagonist and supervillain of the Masters of the Universe franchise. Mattel hasn't specified whether Scareglow is the ghost of Skeletor, who has died, or a ghost under the command of the supervillain. How does he make an appearance in Netflix's Masters of the Universe Revelation? Do the group of heroes encounter this formidable figure in Subternia? Let's find out. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. A brief history and context for Scareglow in the He-Man universe. Scareglow is a skeletal ghost who works under Skeletor. Scareglow is a being from another dimension who was called upon by Skeletor across the lengths of space and time. In the UK Masters of the Universe magazine that came out in 1987, we see a glimpse of how Scareglow was created. He was conjured up by Skeletor in his own image, but made from light energy. Thus, Scareglow has the ability to remain invisible in the light, but not in the dark. In 2002, we saw an appearance of Scareglow in the Masters of the Universe Halloween Special Comics, published by MV Creations Comic Studios. In this storyline, we get our first look at the dimension of Subternia. Ruled by Scareglow, this dimension is a place where terror is instilled in people by forcing them to face their biggest fears. When Scareglow was summoned by Skeletor to do his dirty bidding, this infuriated the skeletal specter. He attempted to use his powers on Skeletor, who claimed he isn't afraid of anything, and easily overcame Scareglow's attack. Skeletor refused to send Scareglow back to his home realm. Scareglow then vowed to find all of Skeletor's greatest fears to use against him. The Masters of the Universe Classics toy line came out in 2008, and Dark Horse Comics created the first 3 mini-comics to aid the lore of the toy line release. This was the moment where his background was really expanded. The storyline followed the lore behind Karuk Nul, a bounty hunter who wished to break into Castle Grayskull, which is a fortress located on the fictional planet of Eternia. Even after his inevitable death, he was cursed and banished to a dimension called Infinita. He was thus eternally chained to all his past crimes. Karuk Nul was then brought back by Skeletor, solely for the purpose of locating the strongest and most evil warriors across all 5 dimensions. He was armed with a glowing scythe and the ability to freeze his enemies with fright. That is when Karuk Nul turned into Scareglow as we know him today. While He-Man and Skeletor were on the planet called Primus, Scareglow hatched a sinister plan. He began forming a clique of supernatural beings, which consisted of Raptrap the Mummy, Soltra the Witch, Crimson Countess the Vampire, and Darkdream the Wraith-like creature. With their help, Scareglow collected 7 artifacts, which he intended to use for deadly purposes. Scareglow, with his group of villains, planned to use the artifacts to raise an army of undead and plunge the planet of Eternia into eternal darkness. Their plans were disrupted by Strobo, who is affiliated with the heroic warriors. Malaktha, who is a royal archaeologist, and her knowledge on sacred texts was crucial and helped defeat the monstrous clique. Scareglow also became one of the few evil warriors to serve Skeletine, who is the son of Skeletor. According to legends, Scareglow isn't his actual name. Scareglows are said to be a monstrous species that haunt the forests of Eternia at night. We see in the Masters of the Universe issue titled The Lost Knight. Here, we see 2 kids running through the forest, being chased after by beastmen. They mentioned the stories of Scareglows living in the forest, of which they must be weary. After his journey through everything we've mentioned so far, we see Scareglow featured in Netflix's Masters of the Universe Revelation, which came out in 2021. This is where Scareglow goes from a kid's glow-in-the-dark toy to a terrifying villain. How did a funny toy become a villain? There was a request by retail for shelves to have more original characters of He-Man rather than more of the new ones. When Scareglow was released, it was met with popularity fueled by nostalgia for traditional action figures. Scareglow turned out to be one of the more popular action figures. By the time of his late release, the Masters of the Universe had reached its peak in action figure production. Most of the figures that were released had action features that were more mechanically advanced. Scareglow is a relatively simple action figure in comparison. He shows up in almost every part of the Masters of the Universe storyline, toy line, and comics. The only action feature he was given is a glow-in-the-dark feature. It is well known how popular glow-in-the-dark toys usually perform on the market. The tagline we see on the toy mentions Scareglow as the evil ghost of Skeletor. This has led many fans to speculate that he is indeed a spectral Skeletor. In the Masters of the Universe mini-comic titled Search for Keldor, we see Skeletor summoning Scareglow and Ninjor across the realms of time and space. This can also suggest that Scareglow is the summoned ghost of Skeletor from the future. However, the tagline can also mean that Scareglow is a ghost who belongs to Skeletor. But Mattel, through the Masters of the Universe Classic storyline, puts forward the lore that mentions Scareglow being the ghost of Karak Nul, the bounty hunter. Exploring Scareglow from Masters of the Universe Revelation. The TV show titled Masters of the Universe Revelation that was released on Netflix perpetuates his story further. It poses as a direct sequel to the animated series He-Man and the Masters of the Universe that was released in 1983. In the premiere of the Netflix show, we see an attempted destruction of the Sword of Power. The Sword of Power, which is also known as the Sword of Grayskull, becomes the means through which Prince Adam transforms into He-Man. Skeletor tries to obtain both halves of the sword to gain power, but fails. In Masters of the Universe Revelation, the sword is destroyed, and further, both He-Man and Skeletor are also wiped out. Teela sets out to find both halves of the sword to prevent the magic of Eternia from fading further. She leads a poorly organized group, part of which are Evil Lyn, Orko, Andra, Roboto, and Beastman. This group sets off to find and reforge parts of the Sword of Power before they run out of time. Going down this path lands them in Subternia, which is a reimagined land of the dead in Eternia. Those who visit see their greatest fears come to life, and those who stay longer than needed are forever trapped in this dimension. The ruler of the dimension of Subternia is Scareglow. As they reach Subternia, Orko begins to recall a poem that describes the effect the illusions of this realm has on its visitors. The end of the poem goes along the lines of, "Flee before your mind goes mad, trust not what Subternia shows. Terror fuels the fires of hell, whose lord is called Scareglow." Teela notices a glow in the distance and also realizes that the rest of her group mates have disappeared. The others have been transported into an illusion. Orko and Evil Lyn find themselves on a planet called Trolla, which also happens to be Orko's homeland. Through the glowing green mist and thick shadows, Teela spots a vague figure. Teela thinks the silhouette in the shadows is Skeletor, but it turns out to be Scareglow. Teela comes face to face with the ruler of this realm alone. When asked about his identity, he claims to be the shadow of a ruler, and now the ruler of shadows in his humble domain. In Masters of the Universe Revelation, the comic published by Dark Horse Comics, Scareglow makes an appearance. He is described as an ancient devil who provided King Grayskull the ore to temper the Sword of Power. King Grayskull once resided in Castle Grayskull and protected Eternia from all threats. He is also said to be the ancestor of He-Man. This fact may hint to why one half of the sword ended up in Subternia, along with how and where it was forged. Also, it explains why the Sword of Power is in Scareglow's possession and how he may give it to Teela. Scareglow reveals the sword and offers it to Teela, but never without a price. Teela must exchange her greatest fear in order to get the sword. Scareglow claims he has waited in that realm for a long time, alone and deprived of fear to feed on. Thus, the choice Teela has is to face her fear or face the consequences of being lost in the darkness forever. She is lowered into the well of darkness, where what she fears awaits. Orko and Evil Lyn see a vision of the magic of the world drying up. Both of them, along with the other members of the group, are faced with fighting the most horrendous monsters called shadow beasts, which quite literally are fueled by their fears. Orko and Lyn are forced to run when they realize that Lyn is unable to use her sorcery. Teela is pitted against an evil He-Man. The He-Man conjured by Scareglow wasn't solely for the purpose of fighting, but also to dig up her greatest fears, insecurities, and self-doubts. The illusion of He-Man turns into a younger version of herself. Her past self continues antagonizing Teela about her fate and fear surrounding it. Teela realizes that her biggest fear is not living up to her fullest potential. Teela eventually sees through Scareglow's deception by accepting what she must do to overcome her fears. One must own, manifest, and control their fears instead of letting fear control them. Thus, she doesn't allow him to feed on her fear. She also manages to find one half of the Sword of Power. With Scareglow slightly weakened, the magic that has been separating them all this while breaks, and the group is reunited. As Evil Lyn opens a portal to escape Subternia, Scareglow appears again and forcibly glues them to the rock that they're standing on. He then launches a full-force supernatural attack. The group is shielded by Orko, who deflects Scareglow's attacks. The group escapes through the portal, but only because Orko decides to sacrifice himself to save them. This episode, which is titled Land of the Dead, successfully manages to raise Scareglow in the ranks of formidability. The last episode of the two-part animated series is titled Comes With Everything You See Here. In this episode, we see Teela finally assume her role as the sorceress. She faces her fears and anxieties about what it means to take up the role of the sorceress. For her, it may mean letting go of her old self. Skeletor claims the power of the Sword of Grayskull and asks Evil Lyn and Beastman to side with him. Thus, he becomes Skelegod. Prince Adam, who is also He-Man, reclaims the Sword of Power. The final war to save the fate of Eternia begins. King Randor and Queen Marlena begin leading soldiers into battle as Castle Grayskull falls under attack. The other Masters of the Universe that are inside the fortress are quickly being overpowered by the enemy forces. Randor immediately encounters Scareglow, who raises his deadly scythe to kill the king. A scarf that materializes out of thin air prevents this blow along with other attacks. It turns out to be Orko. He has been raised from the dead along with others. Godlin resurrected the dead temporarily, and that is how Orko manages to return to help his friends in battle. Now, facing off with Scareglow, Orko encases the glowing skeletal villain in a magical bubble and flings him into the darkness. This is where Scareglow lays beaten for now. Orko also knocks down Godlin long enough for Adam to pick up the Sword of Power and re-establish his powers as He-Man. Godlin takes away some of Skeletor's powers, weakens him, and keeps him from his full abilities. He-Man, after gaining his own powers, also grants Skeletor his powers, only on the condition that he helps him save the universe. The Masters of the Universe steadily begin to strengthen their hand in battle with the help of He-Man. Teela, now known as the Sorceress, comes to encounter Godlin. Both of them fly up into the sky for a cosmic fight. Godlin claims she has spent most of her life trying to find meaning and reasoning for all the suffering. Teela coaxes Godlin to see the true nature of the universe. The universe is hurt, death, and chaos, everything that beings like Skeletor and Scareglow represent. They stand for evil and ill intentions. They feed off of fear and insecurity. But as the sorceress Teela mentions, the universe is also beauty, love, and life itself. Godlin is not inherently evil. She was blinded by the hurt and anger she felt towards the universe. Godlin slowly becomes aware of her true intentions and twisted ways. She decides to give up her mission to end the universe. Skelegod, who had momentarily allied with He-Man, switches back to his familiar sinister ways. He attempts to kill He-Man, but his attack is thwarted by Ram-Man, who is sent by Queen Marlena to help save her son. Skelegod is convinced about the way things must end. The way things must end are with He-Man and Skeletor locked in eternal battle. He-Man throws him over the horizon shouting, "It's not about us!" Teela, with a subdued Godlin in her arms, floats down from the skies. They end the battle and successfully bring back the magic and powers of Eternia. Evil Lyn goes away to a planet called Trolla for the purpose of reflecting on her actions and the decisions she's made in the past. The end of the episode shows us Skeletor going back to Snake Mountain. This is the place which served as the stronghold for all his evil companions, including Triclops, who had assumed the position of the leader of the cult of Motherboard. This took place when both of the Swords of Power were destroyed, and both He-Man and Skeletor were rumored to be dead. The statue of Motherboard in Skull Mountain injected Skeletor with some sort of techno-virus, which vanquished him in that moment. Conclusion. Is that the true and final end of both Skeletor and Scareglow? Since the Masters of the Universe Revelation series ended, Scareglow, who is, after all, the ruler and the lord of the underworld of Eternia, it seems unlikely that he would be brought down by a simple bubble of magic. His powers and strength are far greater than that. We suppose audiences will have to wait and watch out for another glimpse of our beloved skeletal villain, Scareglow. Or maybe even a reinvented action figure that has more action features than just glowing in the dark. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone!